People have this deep we should instinct in them. And it's always like best of intentions, right? It's always like, oh, we should host a dinner party, like for the whole community or something. And you think that that's a good idea, but actually what's baked in there subtly, there's like a twist that you only notice once you go to host a dinner party, which is nobody volunteered to host a dinner party. Like nobody wanted to host it.
Uh,
We should host it. It's like, what are you saying? Like, what you should actually say, the honest, beautiful, courageous thing to say is, I want somebody else to host a dinner party. And like
Interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that is a beautiful thing to say to your community. It's honest, it's courageous, it's important. It's like I wish somebody would host a dinner party. Or you could like get a lot of people to say, you're like, hey, like I polled the community and 15 people want somebody else to host a dinner party and none of them want to host it. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
great. Like I'm glad we have that data. If it doesn't happen, like we just know that nobody feels like hosting it and that's totally fine. But uh sure, like cool that you guys are all being honest.
What does it take to change culture? What exactly is the difference between a friend group versus a community versus a movement for change? How do you invite a better future while building within the existing system? I loved hearing Andrew Rose's answer to these questions because we can still struggle to answer those very same questions for ourselves and Amaki. What exactly is the product or platform that we need to create to accomplish the things that we want to do to bring people together?
There's many moving parts that contribute to a whole. I've been following Andrew's work for a while and appreciate his thoughts and candor on a personal level and enjoy hearing his updates about toddler life. As much as I have enjoyed hearing about the fractal scene in New York and all the different parts that have gone into it. I guess because this story somewhat mirrors our own. Here we are, parents living our lives, trying to build this business, trying to contribute to something larger. One of my favorite aspects of this conversation was when Andrew and I started talking about the theme of abundance and how perhaps it's already here, we just don't have the right culture around it. This is a high velocity, high concept chat that I really, really enjoyed. It's fun to speak to someone who gives you so many ideas and frameworks that you can then go use and apply in your own life and work. And so I hope you get the same value out of this chat with Andrew Rose of Fractal New York.
All right. Well, it's morning time for me, but I guess it's evening for you over in New York.
Yep, 7 p.m. Really nice to talk to you. Thanks for on
Yeah.
the podcast.
Yes. I have definitely made a lot of effort to sort of figure out Twitter or X in the last like year, and you've been one of my favorite people to follow because I can get, bits about like tech and AI and philosophy, and then you'll talk about your 2-year-old and living in New York. And I was really excited to hear about kind of the community that you've been building around Fractal. But
Yeah.
I'm still not even entirely sure what it is. I just know it has
Yeah,
to do with
what is
community
Fractal?
and
It's
it
a
has to
classic
do with
question.
tech. Yeah. So what is
Um,
Fractal?
yeah, yeah. Oh, okay, so it's a good question. There are reasons why we're asking, first of all. Like one of the design principles going into the project was not to tell people too much what it is because
Mm,
there's something beautiful about letting people define themselves and letting a community define itself as well. Um, I'll tell you what I think of it as, although there are people who might even dispute my definition as one of the two people who created the thing. Um,
yeah.
in fact, it's often a little bit easier to tell a story if you don't mind
Yeah, please.
than just saying the definition because fractals, this process that we're creating, much more so than it is
Mm,
any particular institution. Um, when Priya and I first started the community a little over 5 years ago, we had been doing co-living in San Francisco. Then the pandemic happened. We were nomadic. We were kind of traveling around. At the same time, we were studying a lot of, like Priya and I both are, I guess you'd call us futurists in a sense, or technologists. Like both of us have studied technology. Both of us think about how technology can change society and culture. And both of us have actively worked on projects before even we started Fractal that tried to use technology in order to dramatically change, especially cities. We're urbanists. So she worked at a company that was changing how parking is managed, and I was working at a company that was changing how cities were built. And both of us were very fascinated by the future of society, the future of cities, and the future of culture. We ended up doing a research project on a particular phenomenon in culture that fascinated us, which is this phenomenon of scenius. Scenius is
Okay.
the idea that there are scenes throughout history that punch way above their weight. They are unexpectedly productive, unexpectedly
Yeah.
prolific. And it doesn't make sense if you look at it through population statistics, which means there must be something cultural going on in those scenes that is producing an extraordinary amount of genius, so to speak. So some of my favorite examples, because I'm a technologist, are like the Homebrew Hacker Collective or the Train Model Railroad Club or the ARPA Park scene. But also the Royal Society was a subject of study, the early Jesuits. Um, there are the Inklings, there's Black Mountain College. A friend of mine studied Esalen. You know, the list kind of goes on and on and on. And
Yeah.
we had a group of friends that were all interested in this, and we all chose several different groups, and we formed a little study group together where we would read accounts, first party accounts of these groups, as well as second party and third party accounts of these groups. And then we would discuss every week kind of what we were learning, and we would try to come up with theories about culture that
Hmm.
explained why these cultures were disproportionately productive or prolific, and
Yeah.
we would try to disprove each other's theories. So there was like a little bit of critical, there's a little bit of a critical element to this. We weren't just studying; we were also trying to do a kind of experimentation or thought experimentation that would lead us to better theories of culture. And at least our impression as a group following this project, this research project, and my research notes are online; people can read them if they want. Was that actually it's just completely possible to do this. Like it is not even that complicated
Yeah.
or that difficult. And that's not to say that it's not hard. It's like hard but straightforward. Our feeling
Yeah.
was
There's a
like, well, you
playbook.
can kind of
Yeah.
just aim straight at the goal and it's not going to be easy, but also there's a playbook that you can follow and you can kind of create these scenes. But the scenes are different. I mean, they achieve different objectives. The Homebrew Hacker Club
Hmm.
leads to, you know, an entire scene people that are going to start major companies in Silicon Valley, including Apple, for instance, which is one of the
Yeah.
biggest companies in the entire world after that point, and more importantly, shaped personal computing, like the ARPA Park scene, like creates trillions and trillions of dollars in value through the internet and movies and all this stuff. And you could have predicted in advance that these scenes were going to succeed, in my opinion. And you also, the
Uh-huh.
people who were creating them were using social and cultural technologies that allowed those scenes to flourish. It wasn't random chance, and it wasn't just because they were studying the right things.
Yeah.
Uh,
They were exercising the right medium for the time.
right. So I guess this starts to get to what is fractal. Uh, there was a challenge, like kind of a bet, a game between us and our friend Jason Ben. Jason Ben was going to start a project in San Francisco called the Neighborhood SF, and Priya and I were going to start a project in New York called the Neighborhood New York, and we were going to compete to
Hmm.
see whose neighborhood could be cooler, basically. And
I love it.
um, the Neighborhood New York ended up being renamed Fractal at just a later date once we didn't like the name Neighborhood New York anymore.
Hmm.
And then you can kind of see why it's difficult to define what it is and why fractal is a little bit like doesn't necessarily want to be described completely because
Hmm.
this one of the objects of scenes like this is that they don't really want to be about the scene, they want to be about something. And in this case,
Mm.
because one of the somethings that we're very interested in was scene formation itself, there need to be like other somethings that we're stewarding, and we don't want to like snuff those out by making the scene about anything in particular. Also, like, and there are a bunch of particular things that we can get into. Like, obviously, fractal is opinionated and values based. Obviously, it is about, as you said, the future. It's obviously about technology. It's obviously
Hmm.
about a kind of progressive philosophy, not in the political sense, but rather in the sense of progress and
Yeah.
society.
Moving to the
Um,
future. Yeah.
right. So there are obviously a lot of cultural tenets, but it was important to us that before we were identified by those cultural tenets, instead we ourselves enjoyed the culture and the culture bore its own fruits.
Yeah.
Because there are this will get into like more, maybe we'll get into this later, but like there are things that can destroy scenes, and one of the things that can destroy a
Absolutely.
scene very easily is a phenomenon that can lead to something called a group hug of death. which is that a lot of people
Okay.
come to the scene for the sake of the scene. So they come to the scene like for the sake of belonging, or they come to the scene for the sake of it being cool or whatever. And then it
Yeah.
ceases to be about anything, and then people just all like get really excited, and then the thing dies because you weren't building anything in the first
Mm.
place. Uh,
They kind of like love the vibe and all the energy is just put into just like, oh, but this is just like perfect and cozy. And then maybe, yeah, it then
I
like
think that can
lacks
be really hard for
direction.
a scene. Yeah. There are like
Yeah.
things that you can do like that. Like you could say a community is a little bit like that, or you could say a
Mhm.
home or a family is a little bit like that. But it's difficult for a scene to be about itself. It really doesn't want to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the things that came to mind when you sort of brought up seniors are just like maybe it's like cultural moments that are a little bit older, but I think of like like the Bohemians
Yeah,
and just sort
totally.
of like the
That's one of the
cultural
ones that
impact of
Tyler
something
studied.
like that. Yeah, and then again, like the Beat Generation over on this side of the Atlantic. And it was just like a couple of like young, prolific people, but something that yeah, a friend of mine who's like written about these things. If you're do you know Lauren Razavi over at Plumia? We'll get back into it. But she yeah, made a study of digital nomads and also identified that there's with like the rise of like a new media, there can be a rise of like a new scenius of like young people figuring out the format and like sharing the information. And again, it's because there is media involved that this thing gets bigger than just like the sum of its like parts.
Right. Yeah, and therefore there are art scenes, there are computing scenes, there are writing scenes, like the Republic of Letters,
Hmm.
or you could think of the early Jesuits as a scene that emerged after the printing press, and therefore were able to take advantage of it.
Yeah. And so I've noticed, so it seems like even out of the initial San Francisco and New York experiments, like there have been other scenes, folks maybe from the initial group or just taking the idea who are saying like,
Yeah,
okay, we're gonna do this in like Berlin and Brazil, et cetera,
totally.
as well.
Yep. So
So
there's a couple aspects here. Um, you could think of Fractal again. Fractal, what we want Fractal NYC is something, and then Fractal is
yeah.
almost like an even more meta thing than that. So you can think of Fractal as a protocol by which anybody could create Genius anywhere,
Mhm.
or at least get closer. So kind of like this game that my friends and I were doing of like, oh, SF versus New. It's like there's a sense in which we should be able to take cultural technologies and social
Yeah.
technologies, and we should be able to spread them with each other, especially in the age of AI. And we're doing a little
Yeah.
bit of work on this now. We should be able to package up social technologies and then almost deploy them anywhere in the world, but
Hmm.
it has to be context sensitive. So you need operators on the ground there that are going to make the institution completely local and it's going to be sensitive to that local context. What we therefore started doing as a first experiment in this direction was a program called the uh, Campus Accelerator Program. So we started referring to an individual fractal as a campus, and then Priya and Tyler basically put together this program, the Campus Accelerator program, that would help anyone start up a fractal campus anywhere on Earth. We started moving a little bit away from the fractal name, and we're like, again, for kind of similar reasons, like what you don't want is for people to start to think that there is an institution called fractal
Right.
because scenes don't like to be institutions. They don't want to be institutions because
You're not
institutions have
like
government.
McDonald's, the franchise coming into like, oh,
Right.
you're doing fractal wrong. It's like, no, no, no,
Yeah,
you need to
exactly.
take this
Yeah.
on yourself.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, people don't like being told that they're doing things wrong, and people also don't like being told what to do, and they don't like being governed by
Yeah.
foreign entities that are outside of the local context. So a lot of these fractals are called something else, but they went through our campus accelerator program and we helped them get off the ground and we helped give them kind of the technologies that we use to grow fractals. So there's one in I mean
Cool.
there's like 12. I could they take a while to list them all, but there's one in Portugal, a really good one in Geneva, a really thriving one in Boston, one in
Yeah.
SF, Toronto, Vancouver, a few others.
So at this point, does it feel like each the thing, the direction for each of these like fractal communities has kind of emerged that distinguishes it, or does it still feel pretty loosey goosey?
It kind of depends on the individual scene. So part of what this kind of gets more into the actual moment that we're in as a
Hmm.
society, and a little bit less about just Fractal. But I think one of the reasons that scenes like Teapot and scenes like Fractal
Mm,
feel as if they're not quite about a thing yet is actually because the thing that they're about hasn't yet arrived. Like we're
okay.
early. We're early to a
Yeah.
thing that is going to come soon. And if you wanted to point a finger at some other groups of people that are early, you mentioned digital nomads. I think there's like the network state kind of
Hmm.
camp of people. There's uh, there are like obviously a bunch of tech scenes that are kind of early to what is next or what is new. There's crypto, which is kind of early to what is next or what is new. And like you can kind of sense that every one of these groups that I name is inadequate in a way. Like a lot of
Yeah.
onlookers who are looking at this are like, I kind of see the importance that, call it like call it new institutions or the
Hmm.
future of institutions or whatever. And uh yeah, new cities are relevant here, like Esmeralda or Edge Project, or even
Yeah.
like whatever, it's California Forever, Cul-de-sac, the company that I work for. And again, there's like people will have different affiliations depending on their personal preferences within this kind of stack of social cultural technologies that are
Hmm.
emerging here. Fractal and Teapot in particular, I think, have tried to take an approach which is more patient than a lot
Yeah.
of these projects, which is to say, like, I really don't want people to start thinking that Fractal is a community in the sense that it is like about itself and it's about belonging. I don't think that
Yeah.
Fractal is about belonging, and I don't think that it's about itself. I do think it's a scene, and yet it's hard for me to say with precision what Fractal is about because I think I kind of look at this whole thing and I'm like, this is all about network technology. Network technology needs
Mm.
to be invented. It's like not here yet. We have networked 8 billion people. And yeah, we have software, and software and protocols are like some of the first network technologies. So we have like the web, we have social protocols, we have email, like, there's a bunch of network technologies, telephone, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, but we haven't quite fully digested network technology and built network native cultures and
Yeah.
network native institutions. And now there's this new AI thing which is being added to the network. So there's intelligence.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking about like, oh, okay, well maybe and we still don't know exactly yet, but all of a sudden everyone at Fractal is really excited about what I'm calling cyborgism. Cyborgism is like
Okay.
not a term that I necessarily am going to commit to forever. It kind of depends how things shake out. People are also saying centaurs, but I think that's kind of weird. But I don't know, it's kind of cool. But cyborgism is mainly about the fact that there's a new medium. So there's a new intelligent medium of thought. And similarly to writing, if you think of AI as a tool, like imagine if you thought of writing as a tool. It's like a tool to market
Yeah.
your business, or it's a tool to like publish things in order to get more
Yeah.
eyeballs or
A tool
whatever.
of
You could think of
communication.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, you could think of it that way, and you could think of AI the same way. But I find that that's a weak way to think about writing because if you're a writer, you understand that there's something deeper that's going on here, which is like my
Sure.
my identity is inside of my written word. It's not that writing is a tool that I use to accomplish my goals. It's that I am my writing. Literally, like I cannot
I
the
hear
writing
you.
is me
Yeah.
and I'm my writing and like we're inseparable once I put my pen to paper, so to speak. So and obviously you can also use it as a tool. It's just that I call these things media. Media technologies, you mentioned the
Hmm.
word media. Media are extensions of self. Anything which is an extension of self.
Hmm.
And and so my identity extends into my writing through that media. I extend myself. There's a new thing going on with AI where some people are merely using it as a tool, but other people who I call cyborgs are starting to realize that actually it's not just a tool, it's a new media. So it's a,
Yeah.
it's a thing that you enter into and that starts to form your identity, especially now with
Yeah.
harnesses. Like you have all these scale files, you have all these claude.md files, you have all this context, you have all this data, and as it grows and as you garden it, so to speak, this
Hmm.
is like Tiago Forte's building a second brain or whatever, except now with intelligence applied. As you garden this, you start to realize like, whoa, this is me. Like not to say that
Yeah.
the AI
Yeah.
is a replica of me. I just mean like literally me and the AI combined and
No,
we're
but
one
it's a
thing.
two-way process, right? Kind of like
Yeah,
you were saying
exactly.
with writing. Like you explore yourself through writing, you put yourself into it,
with the AI, the more context it has, the greater an imprint that you have. But there's a feedback process. And so it
Yeah.
reflects back on you. I hear that. Yeah.
And then the kind of final step there is like, okay, we'll take cyborgism applied to the individual, just like all other media technologies. These things don't end with individuals. They move
Hmm.
into cultures and then they move into institutions. And so you will have a cyborg university. You will have cyborg communities. You will have cyborg churches. And like, what is a cyborg university? Well, one definition, like a simpler early cyborg university, might be a university that runs itself basically. So like imagine that I could download a university. I basically download a zip file, I run it on my computer, and it's like an open claw. Basically, like it never stops. Like I message the university and it signs me up for a class. And then I
Yeah.
like I message it about some
Conducting its
problem I'm
own
having and it
independent
connects me with
research
the
in the
teacher.
background. Yeah.
Sure, I mean maybe it's doing its own research, but like maybe it's just hiring researchers automatically. Or
Mm.
maybe it's all open source. So it's like it doesn't hire or charge anyone anything because it's basically free because it's software. So somebody hosts the university and then researchers get like hired, but everything is kind of just runs on reputation. Um, you can
Okay.
imagine you can imagine these kinds of institutions forming where institutions become effectively like zip files that I download from the internet and then run on my computer, and then that forms an entire body which people kind of collectivize around. And that's
Hmm.
an example of network technology. I think Fractal, if I had to guess, Fractal is about researching and proliferating
Mm.
network technologies, and then proving that they work by implementing them in person here in New York, and then spreading them across our network of
Yeah.
kind of scene builders throughout the world. But I think again, it's almost like I'm still a little bit too early to know for
Yeah.
certain.
I hear you. So, like, there is a community element there, but it's also kind of like a practice. Like, everyone's sort of
Yeah,
creating a practice, practicing the
yeah,
practice, propagating the practice, and like the results of that practice are is like somewhat yet unknown and not fully applied. But yeah, there's a
yeah.
moment, an inflection point that you're kind of intuiting
Yeah, and
will
it's
happen at
interesting to
some
look at
point.
some of the stuff Fractal's already doing and then kind of infer what it is from there. So like we
Yeah.
have multiple like physical spaces, both we have co-living. So basically a bunch of people are co-located and live with each other literally as roommates and in the same neighborhood as neighbors.
Hmm.
We also have classes. So we have like a community university that we've created with 10 to 20, sometimes 30 classes every semester, and between 200 and 500 students every semester, depending on how large that semester is. We have um, a tech accelerator that helps people, like we in jobs programs that help people break into the industry. We have researchers who are researching these network technologies. We have a lot of book clubs. We have a lot of reading. Um, we have physical co-working locations. We call these
Hmm.
campuses. So it's like you kind of piece this together, and you're like, oh, are they starting like a university or something? There's like something
Yeah.
there as
Yeah.
well that you could say that it is. And I just think it's like it's too early to put exactly a label on it because I don't know what it wants to be. But these are the things that we naturally do
Yeah.
that just popped up, and most of these things are volunteer projects.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about. So is this all purely connected through culture and like the social network, or is there
That's what we
financial
try to
like
do.
backing? Hmm.
That's what we do. So there's no financial backing for Fractal. All the entire project. One of the points of the project was to prove that you could do this stuff for free.
Hmm.
We have a theory that America is already living in a golden age. Like we're already the wealthiest
Yeah.
society in history, and we already have all the wealth we need to create a much, much better culture for ourselves. But we're insufficiently organized. So like we're just missing the network technology or the
Yeah.
coordination technology that's needed to be happy,
Yeah, it's
essentially,
kind of an
or
attitude
to flourish.
problem, right?
Yeah, you could think of it as an attitude problem. You could think of it as a friendship problem. You could think of it as a community problem or a relationships problem or a coordination problem or
Yeah.
whatever, what have you. And like all of these are valid ways of looking at kind of the same thing. And then, uh, so that was the core principle there. Priya and I obviously could not run Fractal forever on just our savings. So we had a couple options. Like one was go get jobs. A lot of people in the community just have jobs. Um, Another option was to start a business. We did start a business. That business is connected to Fractal, but is not itself all of Fractal. It's like a sub piece of it. So specifically, the tech hub is like an economic engine part of Fractal. the point of that project,
Cool.
which is like my company, is to experiment with connecting this larger community directly with the market in a part of the market that we know we can deliver value. So like we know we can deliver value in the tech industry because a lot of us are technologists. Okay, well let's build a tech hub. And then that can be where a lot of our commercial efforts live so that the rest of the community can still remain as it is effectively a cultural project rather than an economic project.
That's really cool. Because a lot of us that are sort of drawn to the Amiki project or sort of the initial group come from just like the crypto blockchain background. So this
Yeah.
I like this excitement about like decentralized projects tends to be there. So it's really nice to
Yeah.
hear about something like this like in action because it can tend to go the other way so quickly. You start off
Yeah.
with the best of intentions, but then just it naturally gets co-opted in a way that I don't think is
People
necessarily
really
even
love
malicious. It's
Yeah,
just
people
habitual.
really love doing this.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of social technologies and like rules that we had to etiquette,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. Um,
Yeah.
there was a there was a huge pushback against any we shoulds. And by the way, it still happens. Like
Mm.
we should still occasionally happens, and every time I hear it, I'm like, no,
Yeah.
no, never. I like never ever in my life we should actually. I'm just not going to. Like I refuse. I would prefer not to, you know. And you have to push back so hard because people have this deep we should instinct in them, and it's always like best of intentions, right? It's always like, oh, we should host a dinner party like for the whole community or something, and you think that that's a good idea, but actually what's baked in there subtly, there's like a twist that you only notice once you go to host the dinner party, which is nobody volunteered to host the dinner party, like nobody wanted to host it.
Uh,
We should host it. It's like, what are you saying? Like, what you should actually say, the honest, beautiful, courageous thing to say is, I want somebody else to host a dinner party. And like
interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that is a beautiful thing to say to your community. It's honest, it's courageous, it's important. It's like I wish somebody would host a dinner party. Or you could like get a lot of people to say, you're like, hey, like I polled the community and 15 people want somebody else to host a dinner party and none of them want to host it. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
great. Like I'm glad we have that data. If it doesn't happen, like we just know that nobody feels like hosting it and that's totally fine. But uh sure, like cool that you guys are all being honest. What's really scary
Yeah.
is once you have like we shoulds running in a community, then activity just sort of like happens for its own sake. So we had, I don't know, there's like I there are different parts of the community and different parts have different beliefs about this, and I'm strong on the decentralization front, obviously, but like there are community events which I felt like were being hosted out of a sense of obligation. And honestly, every time I
Mm.
attended, I could kind of sense the vibe, you know? There's
Mm.
something it is like to be welcomed warmly into somebody's home or into somebody's event that they
Right.
personally deeply care about, that they love, that they do because it's their gift every single time. And then there's something else that it is like to show up to
Yeah.
an event that is hosted by a community and then the community is like putting it on. And again, like if some people in the community see that as their job, like they love it, it is their passion, it's their mission, then it totally works. But if it's kind of like everyone's pushing each other to do it, this you get these like weird, gross corporate effects, and it's bad.
Yeah. I've done a lot of I had my phase where I guess I was trying to address my own community burnout where it was
Yeah,
like, oh, I'm gonna create a little like community to support the community builders
yeah,
because a lot of us go through this. And I definitely remember like when I moved back to Chiang Mai and I wanted to sort of like help support like the startup scene and get the digital nomads integrated, I started hosting meetups. And I did this with friends and it was like really fun, but it did start feeling like an obligation. And I remember at one point, like one of the regulars who's like, you know, a little on the woo woo side, I think he's like a Reiki healer now. At one point, he just looks at me, grabs my shoulder and says, like, Lily, where are you? It's like, what are you talking about? And it's like, you're not here. You're not in this room right now. And I just remember
right.
being so angry with him in that moment, but it was something that like stuck around and I really thought about it later. And it's like, yeah, he completely called it. Like I was performing that moment, but I had
Yeah,
like lost that spark. Like I had no desire to connect myself. I was simply creating that space out of obligation, as you're kind of pointing out.
totally.
It's really interesting to me that
Yeah,
you like noticed it and how you explain like the we should portion. It is this generosity that I can see that you're trying to sort of bake force into the culture, but not by like you must be generous, but like through editing, so to speak.
Yeah, like
You
I
sort
would
of
literally
try to make sure
so
that's
much
there.
rather you be selfish than be altruistic. Like it's
Yeah.
not close. Because selfishness is
Yeah.
courageous and beautiful, but
Hmm.
altruism, you have to be so careful. Like, is that a
Yep.
gift? Is that really a gift?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like if
Yeah.
it's really truly a gift, then like thank you from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. But is this like a secret altruism where you're trying to make the world a better place or something, and it's about you? Because like I don't know, I don't want to be part of that.
Totally.
That
It's
energy is unclean.
it's often an expression of shadow, and I think in
Yeah,
sort of like the post woke reckoning, everyone trying to maybe figure out how to process that within their own particular worldview. Yeah, to me, the most useful part is sort of realizing like we all want to do good, we want to be good, we want to be
yeah,
able to think of ourselves as good, but we can so quickly become detached from that.
totally. Yeah,
Yeah. So something that I guess one of the things that brings us together at Amagi, and one of the things you said about where you think like Teapot and Fractal might be going is like waiting for a moment.
yeah,
Is I feel similarly about Amagi. Like there's a core, like, okay, we know that community and belonging and gathering is important, having a physical place, establishing some relationship to the land, just so that we touch grass, but also
totally.
to help create a platform so that folks who want to do like have regenerative practices don't have to like restart like the economics and the business model and like the platform all from scratch. Similar, we're
Yeah,
trying to see if we can bring together a lot of insights and just like codify it just to help people get off the ground more easily. And one of my intuitions is I feel like we are sort of waiting for like trying to propagate like a software, so to speak, for abundance because it feels like we're kind of on the precipice.
yeah,
And
I
to
agree.
your point, you think like we might already be there, right? Because
Yeah,
I think, especially as so much meaning has been and relationship has been created through work and like economic productivity, I think we're kind of like, okay, the Industrial Revolution has like had its moment. So, like, what's next? And what's next, I think, has a lot more to do with people and relationship and the ability to like find meaning. So I feel in that way like a lot of like strong like warmth towards what you're doing because it feels
yeah,
like similar to that. But I'm very curious because, like I said, a lot of the folks that we've spoken to on Amagi are a little bit more like rural. A lot of the intentional communities, eco villages, etc., have a relationship with the land. And there's a not insignificant amount of people who are very sure that we're like headed towards collapse. And so like that's a big part of their motivation. You're a father, you're invested in the next generation, you live in one of the most hyper urban places on the planet. So I don't think you see a collapse happening, is my guess. Or I'm just curious, like,
yeah.
how do you think about that? Do you identify as like an optimist? Like, what do you think like the near future is?
I'm definitely an optimist. I guess I kind of see myself and my friends, and like for better or worse, like maybe this is some kind of uh personality flaw of mine, but I kind of see my friends and I as the vanguard people that are going to make sure a collapse does not happen.
Hmm.
And I think there are ways of doing that by creating an alternative, um,
Hmm.
which I think is good suggestion, very American also. Um, but there are ways of doing it that are loyal, that are about reform of what already exists and what is already working. And
Yeah.
if I had to just point out what I'm good at, it's definitely the latter more than like I could probably be good at both, I guess. But there's a sense in which I have been convinced, at least by my colleagues here in New York, some of the people who I really look up to, who are amongst the most ambitious and kind-hearted and beautiful souls that I've ever met, that I ought to pledge my life and my work to my society, to my country, to my
Yeah.
city. And I think that um, I just take a lot of pride in that. I take a lot of pride in the things that have been built by my forefathers, by my ancestors. I find a lot of beauty in the things that have been built by prior generations and even by
Yeah.
my, my fellow citizens who live in this generation. So there's some amount of I actually do see the argument for collapse in certain ways. I also see the inverse. Like I am an optimist to my core, partially as a definite optimist. I look at what we're able to do in cities, and I study economic agglomeration effects. I've studied urban economics. My intuition from studying these things is that the urban form is one of
Mm-hmm.
core technologies that we've invented as a species in
Yeah.
order to survive difficult periods in history, in order to survive tumultuous moments or catastrophe. And in fact, the urban form is kind of one of the pinnacle expressions of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
It is where we are at our strongest. It is where we are at our most innovative. It is where we come together most and find the best opportunities for work and for meaning. Um, and yet obviously like none of that matters if the ecology goes to shit. Like there's a push and pull here, like a yes and on
Yeah.
sides of the spectrum. I guess I just saw in this larger community that like a lot of people were staying in the cities just for the money or like just to work,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, no, like that's not why I want to be in the city. Like I want to be in the city because that's the place where meaning is made. That's the place where like beautiful things are made, where universities are made, where businesses are made, where commerce happens. And I think that those things are beautiful. So I don't know. That's kind of like the long-winded, like pie in the sky answer. There's also more practical reasons which I could give, which are just along the lines of like Teapot is a networked kind of form. It's a networked
Yeah.
thing, and being at Shelling points is pretty important if you want to uh, build infrastructure for a network, because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people in the network were going to flow through that point at one point
Yeah.
or another. Like imagine, for instance, the world where there was no such thing like Fractal in New York City. Well, then New York City, to me at least, becomes just a lot. I mean, luckily there are a lot of things like Fractal in New York
Yeah.
City for what it's worth. Uh, but if there were not even a single one at all,
Mm-hmm.
it's like New York City would be a very dull place all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You'd be missing out on something important that all of these people who are scattered throughout the world would be able
Mm-hmm.
to, they're all going to come here once a year or once every 4 years or
Yeah.
something
Yeah. I
like
hear
that.
you.
And, those are practical reasons why cities.
Yeah, because we have it's a moment about technology and media, and the
Yeah.
internet helps us to create these gravity wells of ideas and culture, right, where people can cluster, but to also have the power of like physical gravity in a city that can support Scenius, that has birthed Scenius before, where you can be adjacent to
Yeah,
like
there's a
many
history
different
that you're part of.
scenes. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's sort of the theory of diffusion of innovation, right? Is like you need to have like nodes, and these nodes need to touch diversity, as it were, right?
Yeah.
And you can think of this like in many different ways. I remember studying this, and it's like, oh, okay, right. You get the tech person who like co-founds a project with somebody who has like like no tech skills whatsoever, but like deep industry
Yeah,
expertise, and
exactly.
that's how you sort of like revolutionize it, and that's how innovation is created, right? You need
Right.
people who have deep knowledge of different forms coming together to
Yeah.
try something
Yeah, you want
new.
like unlikely relationships, unlikely pairings. You want serendipitous moments, and being in a
Yeah.
big city provides for all of these things. There's an additional kind of lucky thing, which is that the spirit of Ellis Island is still alive in New York. Like
Uh-huh.
every immigrant from every part of the world is here, and we in particular love that kind of dynamism. Like we have friends all over the world. Where
Mm-hmm.
do those friends want to be when they come to America? They want to be here in New York City. And like, yeah, it might be
Yeah.
hard because there's a lot of problems in the city right now, especially with respect to housing costs. But those are problems that me and my friends want to participate in solving.
Sure. Yeah. Logistically, like if I go back to the States to visit my family, I often fly through New York because that's the best flight deal. So like you've
Yeah,
got all these things going for you.
yeah,
No, I love what you had to say about like loyalty and about feeling American, because I think a lot of times we can talk about the American identity and people will think about that as there is a distinctly like rural, like, in the land, frontier spirit of America. And that's true. That's like beautiful and lovely and fundamentally American. But you also wouldn't have America without like New York and
Yes, yes,
financial
yes.
services and
For instance,
technology and
right.
industry and innovation,
Yeah.
right? Like, you
And
need
law and
both
government.
poles
Yeah.
to function for America to be the country that it is, like so productive in all these different ways, right? And so I really appreciate that you're kind of trying to like anchor this pole of like American dynamism. I think in a moment that's like honestly like politically like difficult too,
Right.
because like these
Yes.
things have become so tribalized. Um, yeah,
That's actually one of the most fun parts I found of Fractal, for what it's worth. Like, I don't know if we want to get into it, but like, it has been wonderful to be a home, a sanctuary in some sense
yeah,
for a kind of classically liberal freedom
yeah.
thought. Just like people disagree here. There are communists, there are communists and anarchists who sit literally desk to desk in our co-working
Yeah.
space with like total capitalist, like laissez-faire capitalist
Hmm.
libertarians at the same time that they are surrounded by like relatively mainstream
Hmm.
Democrats and relatively mainstream Republicans. I mean, Republicans a little bit less common in New York, but still many of them. And then
Hmm.
plenty of independents, all sorts, who all have various political philosophies, one way or another.
Yeah.
That it's like there's just something beautiful to like show up to my co-working space and to have a conversation about the economy or education or whatever, and
Hmm.
to honestly get into it with somebody where they disagree with me, they're comfortable disagreeing with me, I'm comfortable disagreeing with them. Um, I just got into it with one of my friends about the wealth tax in California in my co-working space, and like the way the conversation ended was we both were just like, yeah, like both of us are making pretty good points. Like we should read a book about this, and
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, awesome, perfect. It's nature is healing.
Yeah. No, I think we do we like people like as
Yeah,
a species. I think that's just like how we are, right? Like we
yeah,
understand the relationship that we want to have with people. And for all that, I respect the project to make like Twitter like the town square and a platform for free speech. It is so easy to just block someone because like I'm not interested in this conversation, like, and
yeah, and it's different
can
too, right?
encourage
Because
our
like,
tribal instincts
yeah,
versus
definitely.
natural corrective measure of like, I'm going to see this person again tomorrow. I like this person
Right.
for a whole host of reasons that are totally separate to their politics, and I want to preserve this relationship. I need to be able
Yeah,
to have discourse in a way that's like protective of that
yeah.
without, yeah, but also still have like the courage to actually, you know, express yourself.
I also think people have, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting political things that I really love. It's like, in some ways, people have forgotten that it is okay and acceptable to minority opinion, for instance.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
partially that's because a lot of institutions and cultures have begun rejecting people with minority opinions and just saying, like, you're not welcome. Uh, but that's not normal. Uh,
No.
it's very common in American political institutions for there to be a minority on any particular issue, and they issue a minority opinion on those issues. Like, obviously, famously, the Supreme Court has majority and minority opinions, but this is true across the political stack in a lot of political clubs and a lot of political forms throughout history, where groups of people disagree, they vote, there's resolutions which are made by the board or made by the assembly, and then there's a minority who felt disenfranchised by the fact that that assembly disagreed with them, and then they write a minority report, literally a
Hmm.
minority report. Famous expression. People don't know exactly where it comes from. And then, if you want, you can read the minority report. And in this way, you preserve your values while still being part of the assembly with your
Yeah.
colleagues. And occasionally, you'll be part of the majority. Occasionally, you'll be part of the minority. It's
Yeah. No, it's an interesting point about sort of like yeah, power dynamics of institutions and some practices that we already had. Sometimes we just forget. Coming
we
back to
we
like
definitely
the
forget. Yeah.
yeah. I'm curious to go back into the sort of physical aspect of that, right?
Totally.
Because it's the, you know, because you guys have a physical presence, so many folks like live and work and spend time alongside one another. It's this corrective to some of the worst instincts that the internet can bring
Right.
out, right?
Right.
So it's like you're, again, I like the sort of healthy tension that I see you guys like baking into this. I believe it's your wife Priya who did like a lot of the work to like get people living together. Can you share more about like that aspect of things?
Yeah, Priya is an insane logistics person who is just
Uh-huh.
like beyond next level at this kind of stuff. But for, I don't know, the first 2 years of Fractal, we were managing, I think, 6 leases. Like our names were on
Mm.
6 leases, and we were filling 6 leases at all times, and we were cycling people through them on almost like a month-to-month basis.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
we weren't doing this because this was a business model. We were doing this because we wanted to provide an option for nomads and travelers to visit Fractal and
Mm.
to come to New York and to join our community. And we noticed that people, like, if you come to New York and your only option for housing is to sign a year-long lease or to book an Airbnb,
Yeah.
like, you're not coming back. But if you come for a month or 2 months and you stay in a sublet, we're a friendly group of people who are going to greet you and say hi to you, um, welcome you, then and then like it's not perfect. We kind of intentionally made it a little bit uncomfortable. Like it's not that there's nothing wrong with any of these units. It's just like we were living in a building with like relatively low rents and a
Hmm.
lot of bedrooms, and there's just a general like felt like coming to college or something where you're surrounded by a bunch of people who kind of get you, but also where you're like, okay, if I'm gonna live like my whole life here, I maybe want to get my own place. Um,
Hmm.
and so it was perfect. It was actually perfect. And so for like 2 3 years as we were starting Fractal, she would help people onboard into these places. She would help them sign their own leases, and then the community grew to 70 people living in a 5-minute walk from each other because of that effort. I think with
Yeah.
that plus weekly hosting of dinner parties, um, which brought the community together and let the culture kind of mingle. I think without that, there's no way Fractal would exist. I mean, there's just no world in which we coordinated people through leases. It needed to be sublets.
Hmm. Hmm. Or could have like recreated this on a Discord.
Yeah, we had a Discord like that. Yeah, we. In fact, one of the inspirations for Fractal was that I had this Discord that was like so good, and I was like, I feel like I could do this in person.
Yeah.
Anyway, now after building Fractal, I'm like Discord. That's no, that's nothing.
Yeah. So you and Priya moved back to New York. You were working on Fractal, and
Yeah,
then somewhere along the timeline, you had a daughter
yeah. So
while you
what
guys
was
were deep
this?
in this work.
Yeah, 3 years into the project or so. Honestly, there's a lot to say that does have to do with community and doesn't have to do with community.
Hmm.
I could say a few things like none of these are real. You have children. Like, why having a child is something that God decides for you in a sense. So like everything I say is just so storytelling. But like there were a few things going on. Like one, nobody in the community was having kids, and we were starting to get worried that like we would be kind of
Yeah.
a forever young community of unserious adults who were just like in New York temporarily. And we didn't want
Mm.
that for ourselves. We didn't want this for our friends. And we were like, okay, we have to get this show up. Like, let's just have a kid as leaders, and then everyone would be like, it's okay. Like, you can have a kid and live in community in New York. It's not weird. Um,
Yeah.
I guess successful. Great job, us on that one. There was another thought we had at the time, which was like we had built Fractal. It had grown to the like next scale of the 60 or 70 people in walking distance, and we had started this community university called Fractal University. And Fractal University was going well. We were on like our second or third semester at the time, um, and it was almost like we did it. There wasn't. We
Hmm.
could tell that Fractal was done, so to speak, in the sense that
Mm.
there was no more co-living to do. Like we could do more, but what's the difference between 50 and 100? It's like all
Yeah. The
the
flywheel had
same.
been cranked, right? Like
Yeah, and
things were
then
going.
and then with the community university, it's like yeah, we could like focus even more on it and make it even better. And that could have been interesting, but it was a volunteer project. Like both of these were volunteer projects. And Priya and I were like
Yeah.
running out of money and in our savings because everything was just from our savings. And then we were we were like, what's what's the most important thing, you know?
Hmm.
And I think we just decided the most important thing was life. The most important thing was family, and our community needed. So, or at least like we needed that. Priya and I did,
Yeah.
and like our direct. And this is another interesting thing about Fractal, by the way, is another reason I don't call it a community and I call it a scene is once you start to get to this scale where you have Fractal University and Fractal itself and Merlin's Place and all these spaces, like we're talking 300 to 500 people easily who are
Mm-hmm.
in who feel as if they have a community, so to speak. And it's like obviously that's not a community. That's like way too many people for a community. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like many communities that kind of all share a scene. So Priya and I have a kid. The final reason is that I think we were just kind of getting bored. Oh, that was what I was saying with Fractals. It's like Fractal had kind of
Mm.
gotten to this next stage, and we were like, what do we do next? Like maybe we start a company. We know that we needed to make money. Like maybe we get a job. I don't know. But at the time, we were just like not super inspired to do those things, and for some reason, we're really inspired to have a kid. And we were like,
Yeah.
okay, well, if we do it, we have no exact plan for how we're gonna pay rent and take care of our child, but like probably our parents would take care of us in the event that nothing worked out. And
Mm.
so obviously incredibly thankful that I'm in that position. I don't think I'd be able to do that without
Yeah.
knowing that I have that as a valve. And then we just decided to do it. And then immediately once we were pregnant, I was like, oh, I need to start a business. I need to make money. So I was applying to jobs and got some job offers and decided to start a company instead, and that's what's tech. So
Mm.
yeah, baby tech. It's been hard. Honestly, this there's a couple things that happened. First, we had to move away from our community because it was in like I said, it was kind of like joining college or something. And
Mm-hmm.
like unsurprisingly, it kind of felt like having a child in dorms, and we were just like
Right.
somewhere in the second trimester, Priya just got the ick, and she was like, "I literally
Her
cannot."
nesting instinct said.
Yeah, she was just like, "I can't raise a child in dorms," and
Mm-hmm.
that caused a big identity crisis for both of us. Like, very very
Yeah.
hard decision because we were like, "Wait, does this mean we're abandoning them? Does it mean we
Mm-hmm.
don't love Fractal? Does it mean we're giving up on Fractal?" Turned out none of those things, and actually, in retrospect, I believe this was very important for the same reasons I was mentioning earlier about like navel gazing and group hug of death. There's a there's a sense in which like the thing is never the thing. It's always like the movement that's the thing. It's always the process that's the thing.
Yeah.
And so by in a sense moving away from that initial community and we started like Fractal Fort Greene, we started the
Mm-hmm.
we started the seeds of this idea that Fractal is something that could exist in multiple places, that it could
Yeah.
spread, that it's a protocol. So we started a secondary neighborhood in New York City in a place that was more baby friendly, moving away from that kind of back to the original Fractal neighborhood in like in 16 months technically, or at least with 16 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then uh, and that whole journey was kind of an interesting thing that inspired this spreading. Fractal, then we would run the Scene Accelerator program, which would spread it further. But we kind of almost like took a sabbatical to have our kid, so to speak,
Yeah.
from Fractal, while we were like continuing to do community stuff, and I was starting my business, and now she's almost 2, our daughter Artemis. I think that what's crazy about this era is it almost felt like we had 2 kids because we started a business and had a baby at the same time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I remember the worst week of my life, ish. And in some ways, it's like a beautiful week, but like uh, Priya got shingles like while she was recovering in bed from her C-section, and I had to go work because it was the first week of my 60-hour per week AI camp cohort of the first one
God.
that I'd ever run. And so it's like,
Yeah.
okay, like I need to be full time at work Monday through Saturday, and I can't be home. And my wife has shingles, and she has a baby, and the baby can't even lay next to her. Like the baby is
Oh.
fucking 2 weeks old and wants to
Oh.
cuddle and, and because of shingles. So thank God my mom came and helped us. There's like nothing like a grandmother, and she was there by Priya's bedside and took care of the family, and it's okay.
Yeah.
In retrospect, I guess we'll all laugh about it. Maybe we're not quite ready to laugh about it yet, but like
Yeah.
soon we'll laugh about it all.
You can talk about it with a smile on your face at least.
I definitely find it all very amusing how difficult it
Mm.
was, but I do think that, and like I'm proud of us for how hard we worked during that era,
Yeah.
but there is some amount of like, oh wow, I don't know if that, oh, I don't know if I would recommend to people to start a company and have a baby at the same time. I think it's gonna work out, but there were,
Shockingly common.
Yeah, the amount, the yeah, and exactly. It's like generally having a kid is just this incredible act of faith and
Yeah.
object of faith, and that has definitely been what has gotten me through it. Is like I have over
Yeah.
and over and over again needed to cultivate faith and courage, and then things have worked
Hmm.
out. I don't know what I would do if I was more rational.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it kind of speaks to the moment that we're in. So many people are making like the rational decision to like not have kids or delay it for like reasons. You can always come up with reasons.
Yeah,
But I think what you brought up, it's the fact that like you guys, were ready to go for it anyways, was because you sort of knew that your parents would have your back. And that's again, like that's kind of like a social technology that is like,
totally.
how
Yes.
did we forget that there's like an intergenerational like compact at play here? Yeah. Yeah. It's how it's supposed to work. Yeah.
I totally agree. I was like, wow, why did we move away from home again? All like thousands of miles
Yeah.
away. This was insane. Uh, there's like something beautiful about how mobile generations are and how we like
Mm-hmm.
get to create new communities. And this is exactly the reason we need better network institutions and better network
Yeah.
infrastructure. But also, upon seeing some of these problems close up, especially the intergenerational problem, I I'll say this: I'm an optimist, but so far there has been nothing I've ever seen in any community I've ever witnessed that is like a grandmother. There's like nothing
Mm,
there's no
yeah.
replication. There's like no number of co-parents. There's no amount of co-living so far. Maybe I'll figure it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll find it. But like, and obviously, like, not all grandmothers are created equal. Like, I have a very, very good mother, and she has been so loving and caring to both Priya and I and to our daughter. At least when compared to that standard, there is like nothing that has
Yeah.
come close.
Yeah. I think when you see people who like founders, I think are have a certain streak of like delusion, energy,
Yeah,
ambition, and I think those come in all sorts of different stripes. And people who just like have the tenacity to carry forward against all odds, all the thing,
yeah,
and yet somehow that is a different kind of energy than apparently what's just been like encoded into our genetics. So just making sure that our offspring survive, that our genetic line
yeah,
continues. And it's been very interesting to me as a parent coming from like the like entrepreneurship, digital nomads, like, scene of yeah, that has that sort of strong founder streak to sort of, I guess, learn things that I wasn't necessarily taught outside of the bare biology of it, just to sort
yeah,
of like reappreciate aspects of culture because I sort of trained myself to think in like innovation ecosystems. How do
right.
we discover good ideas? How do we put them into practice? How do we propagate them so that they create benefit for people? And now I'm just like, oh, traditionalism.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like,
right.
yeah, it's like, well, it's technology, except we figured it out in
Exactly.
a completely
Yeah,
different way. And it also comes with like hardware, like
yeah,
baked in. I'm just like, oh,
yeah.
why didn't I never notice this before?
Right. Yeah, yeah. You notice it when you need it. We
Yeah,
reach for the
yeah.
tools that we need. I'm curious to hear how it's been for you, actually. Uh,
Mm.
especially like you have more land, you have a community out there. Do you have your parents?
So I am living in Chiang Mai, and one of the Amagi co-founders, Gear, has been spending more time here. So for us in northern Thailand, we're still at like the evaluating land to move into phase, while
Yeah.
there's a cohort already in Koh Phangan in Thailand with Ofer, the other co-founder. And so
Oh,
they've
right.
been moved into, they took over this resort, they've been renovating, they've been doing community building there for a little over a year. And I've been waiting to visit because I'm like, Ofer, what's the deal with childcare? Because his kids
Yeah.
like in school and they have like a
Yeah.
very nice international school, a very natural environment that's like, a 5 minute drive. So that works for them. But I'm still in the very like close to my babies like phase
Right.
where I'm like, I need people who like physically hold small
Yeah.
children and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
restrain them from jumping into the pool. So for me personally, that's been like, okay, these are the problems like that I need solved on like the
Yeah.
housing and logistical and childcare levels before I can participate. But
Yeah. We've been
I
finding
don't
a
know.
similar thing. childcare is like
Yeah.
should be obvious, we're biological organisms in
Mm-hmm.
retrospect. Obviously, a huge amount of our culture should be devoted to like biological fitness, to the raising of
Yeah.
offspring, or like even just from a scientific perspective. And then I think you just kind of miss it when you're a community organizer because you're just solving your own problems first. And
Yeah.
then you have the
Yeah.
problem of a parent and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot.
And it's different. It's like so many little things that you don't
Yeah.
necessarily anticipate in the moment. Because I think, like yourself and Priya, like my husband and I were like one of the first in our group of friends to have kids. So we had to like cultivate a whole new network of fellow parents. And, I think especially like the women, like we had friends who were like, "Oh, let me know if you need help. I'll come babysit." And while I believe that those were like genuine offers and like beautifully intentioned, you sort of realize like I can't just hand a baby off to just like any old somebody.
Yeah,
Like they need to sort
exactly.
of know what's going on and
Yeah.
like it's not just a matter of like, "Hey, can you come over for 30 minutes so I can go to the gym?" It's
Yeah.
actually like kind of like a whole system calibration, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And so, this isn't quite answering your question, but I think it is you sort of like children introduce this whole new tuning variable that you have to put into the system. And sometimes that means like physical environment needs to be very different. Like the culture around it needs to be very different. And to some extent, perhaps the people are going to be slightly different, you know? And this isn't a criticism at all to the guys down in Gopangan because I think similarly like we're trying to avoid saying like Amagi must be this.
Of
But the
course.
version that I think Gear and I hope to sort of have for like a node in like the north is something that I think is like much more child and baby centric. And that comes with like the founder effect of like, that's what I'm really looking for,
Ex-
as
Right.
like, this is the season. I'm like still a baby maker and like, this is what I need from my community.
Yeah.
Versus, I think the sort of cultural DNA of the folks who are down in Kopangan already is it's this place that people go to for like healing and spiritual reflection. So for
Sure.
them, it's such a natural extension to be hosting like sound baths and community dinners and like, group like meditation things. It's just much more of their practice.
I'm fascinated by um I'm fascinated by like the inverse of the tech culture, which I think like the healing culture and the tech culture are really, like yin and
Mm-hmm.
yang to one another, where
Yeah.
they both have the same shadow and they both have like the same virtues in a sense, and they're
Mm-hmm.
the same people. And yet like oftentimes they pretend like they are each other's shadow. I actually don't think they're each other's shadow at all.
Mm.
Um, I think they are like incredibly synergistic. Like people are obviously doing. I think in fact the shadow of both of those cultures, to your point, like one of the shadows is intergenerational family
Mm.
tradition. There's some amount of just
Yeah.
conservatism generally. Like neither of them are conservative
Mm-hmm.
cultures in
Yeah. Yeah.
remotely.
Yeah.
Both of them are about disruption and like moving on, moving past, progressing forward, and
Mm-hmm.
not really looking and creating home and all this stuff. Um, so and especially not like having family and having grandparents and like that would be very unusual
Yeah.
in a healing community or in a tech community. So there's something interesting here that I've witnessed as well through Fractal, and it's been a
Yeah.
challenge for Priya and I because it's something we really love those cultures in a sense. Like we see them as very innovative and we see the people in them as very creative, but parents.
Yeah.
So there's like all parents kind of get it immediately. Like the maybe not the day your child is born, but then like certainly month 6 or like month
Mm-hmm.
9 hits, and you're just like, oh yeah, I kind of just want to hang out with people who like have their shit together, own a home, have kids, do the same thing every single day, can be relied
Yeah.
upon to be there on Tuesday every Tuesday, and then they're not traveling like every other Tuesday randomly
Mm-hmm.
to different parts of the world. It's like, and it's all these things they all have,
Yeah.
exactly to your point, where you just need to like tune your habits and behaviors to be much more conservative. And then you're sitting there and you're like, wait, this is like a totally different culture than the culture that I
Yeah.
started with. Uh, and I want to see them blend. Like I want to see them be.
Mm.
I want to see them. I want to see the shadow integrate itself with the
Yeah.
you know the light.
So I'm not labeling this as shadow per se, but I think like something that like has dynamics that come into play here. I'm curious, as like a very tech forward community, if you guys also have a lot of folks who are more neurodivergent coming in,
Totally.
because
Yeah.
I feel like that's like a strong dynamic. Is like you have people who are just, like on the autism spectrum who are very techy, who are very cerebral, come to a place like Opangan, which really like invites you to be embodied. Like there's there's different flavors of it, not all is nice, but like there is like there's like a tantra community, and they're like, okay,
Yeah.
like people who give deep hugs, and all of a sudden that's like a new discovery for folks. And I think that becomes like you know I think a lot of people who are used to thinking in themselves as like they're like I am me and my brain and my intellectual self and not so much of my body self, all of a sudden when they get hugs and physical contact regularly, and they have experiences like ecstatic dance which invite them into their body, it just opens up this whole new like aspect of being. And I think that's part of the a certain stickiness of like that destination in particular for that community, and it all weaves into me.
Totally. And yeah, I think that like one of the reasons that we like to model ourselves after campuses that we look up to
Mm-hmm.
is that campuses are places that can tolerate this level of diversity.
Mm.
That many places that can tolerate this level of diversity successfully. A lot of cultures need to be about one thing, but campuses, they're somehow okay with it. Like you will have
Mm.
complete conservatives focused on living their best life, buying their home, getting the job, like being a pillar of their community, studying alongside neurodivergent, tantric, polyamorous, like hipster tech millionaires or
Yeah.
whatever who are like doing ketamine and LSD all the time for healing
Mm-hmm.
purposes. Right? I think that you you are conservative, you might think to the second description like, oh, that sounds horrifying, but
Mm-hmm.
not to me. Like I'm not a conservative. I look at both of these people and I'm like, oh, they're both living their best life. They're both
Yeah.
trying very hard to become something that they think is important and to discover what they think is important about the world. And
Mm-hmm.
you want a place that has enough intellectual and cultural diversity where these people can have an honest conversation with each other, can
Mm-hmm.
talk about the fact that they have these completely different hobbies and behaviors and ask each other why. Like, why do you do that on Saturday night? Why is that what you find
Yeah.
fun? Or like to the more conservative people, like, why do you let loose? Like, why? What is it
Mm-hmm.
about stability that is so important to you? And you'll discover that like people are just doing like completely sensible things that make a lot like dig into it, and you're just like, oh yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Like, I totally understand.
Yeah. So, you sort of brought up like yin and yang, like shadow. So we're talking about kind of like I think there's a frame, like a lens through which you could look like the seniors as like maybe like a personal development
Sure.
space in a way. If it's a
Yeah,
campus not
definitely it's
just like
developmental.
purely of intellectual exploration, but like self exploration and like ideally integration, right? I definitely feel like again, I feel so silly now saying it because it seems so basic, but like I feel like on my own journey of sort of just leaning away from like say like being raised like so feminist and so like liberal, and sort of being able to embrace aspects of like conservatism and traditionalism, is just like, oh, actually like we need healthy tensions. Polarity is like a good thing. Like best is not like one or the other. Best is something that you got to calibrate. And that feels obvious now, but like, yeah, because now I can see like, oh, you talk about like integration of the shadow. You can't just banish parts of yourself, yin and yang. Like, you can't just be hyper masculine and like action oriented all the time. You can't just be feminine and receptive all the time. The best is like being able to have elements of all of it. Like, so, I'm sorry I haven't read all of your writing, but like, is this something that you've like explored with intention, or do you feel like you have like a strong thesis now for the kind of like how you might encourage people to explore like this aspect of development?
I wish I wrote more. I don't. I mean, in general, I wish I wrote more since having a child. I think all parents who
Yeah.
writers, feel this way. Um, I'm working on it. I'm trying to build AI systems, not to do my writing for me, but to turn my writing into published.
Mm.
I feel like I have so much writing that's just notes. It's in the note stage, and I gotta get these notes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
My husband
um,
wrote a script to try to like extract all of his voice messages over
yeah,
2 years with his best friend to turn it into something written,
yeah,
for like
yeah.
the
You can
same
like make it into a
purposes. Like
book,
we have really
whatever.
interesting conversations on voice notes, but like I
Yeah,
can't write this down. How do I get my ideas out there? Yeah.
yeah. In terms of the way I think, I tend to just use the word pluralism,
Mm.
specifically referring to value systems. So, like, I have a value system. I think that there's a large part of moral philosophy that is discussing the merits of various value systems and figuring
Hmm.
out how you can have some kind of moral understanding that creates the good in the world. That's beautiful. And also, it doesn't work in practice to only have one moral philosophy. And what you find is that like the best societies, at least to me, like you can tell obviously from the conversation that I'm some kind of liberal, some kind of classical liberal. Um, to me, the best societies that I look at in history, like obviously just allow multiple moral philosophies to
Hmm.
coexist, even if there are some dominant moral philosophies in certain parts of that society. And I just consider this like this is what I call pluralism. Pluralism is the understanding that there are many perspectives on value, there are many systems
Yeah.
of value, and that you don't want to like delete the ones that you don't agree with. Or you just like want to observe them and notice them
Yeah.
and vouch for yours. Obviously, it doesn't mean you need to give up on your own system of value. This isn't the kind of nihilism that says like all values are the same. No, obviously your value system is the
Hmm.
best one, but also your value system should have like some kind of meta process that's like, but probably have some humility about that. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
my value system is the best one, but like with 1% probability or something. So
Hmm.
I'm just gonna go ahead and make sure that all the other ones still exist and that
Yeah.
they exist in forms that I find beautiful. Hopefully, I come to understand them. I come to integrate them into my own value system, and then we create an ecology of value that's stronger. There are like a
Yeah.
lot of frameworks for understanding this that show up in a lot of different philosophical systems and in science. Obviously, in the scientific community, we would just describe evolution. Um, what we find in evolution is that you don't just want single species, you don't want monocultures. You obviously
Hmm.
want large ecosystems, and ecosystems create opportunities and niches that are
Yeah.
self-referential, such that the ecosystem flourishes together as a kind of single pluralist system of values, even though technically every part of the ecosystem is in competition with every other
Hmm.
part. Like from any local perspective, you're like, yeah, this part is in competition in order to survive. And then from the global part, you're like, wait, no, this whole thing is flourishing. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to learn from that. And then obviously that shows up all over the place in like Taoism and Buddhism and Christianity.
Yeah. So kind of rejecting the idea that like the emergence of a hegemon is like innately like bad or something to fight against, right? It's like
Right. Yeah. Like what
this
you,
kind of
what you want is
postmodern
just
idea.
yeah, you want like a
Hmm.
kind of meta modernism that like you kind of first you look at the postmodernism perspective. I mean, obviously postmoderns are themselves capable of this, so like whether you call it postmodernism or metamodernism kind of depends on which
Hmm.
postmoderns you read. But like look at the postmoderns, look at the like post rationalists or whatever, and then
Hmm.
realize, oh wait, but actually I need a perspective. And then develop your own perspective.
Yeah.
Don't just embrace the fact that there are many perspectives. Like, yes, obviously there are many perspectives, but like also you have one. Figure out what that is,
Hmm.
and then like do both. There's like some amount of you are going to have a value system that emerges. That's good. And also, by
Hmm.
the way, like it's going to move over time. And part of what's going to allow
Yeah.
it to move is the fact that it exists inside of some philosophical ecology. And hopefully you help
Yeah.
cultivate that philosophical ecology and encourage it. Otherwise, you're not going to have any people who are going to improve your ideas. And like people who disagree with you
Mm.
obviously are the whetstone upon which all your ideas and value system are going to be shaped.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's again something that I've come to sort of appreciate about classical liberalism and like the American project, right? And like why it's important to respect the sort of whole range. Like, because I, yeah, this idea that like diversity is our strength is like, no, actually, like a group is stronger when they like have shared core values around which they can organize and like achieve ends. But to that ought to be like descriptive, that ought to be emergent because it is kind of a more natural human tendency to group that way rather than be something that's prescriptive, right? So like these are the only things you're allowed to believe. Like the other fringe beliefs should be allowed to exist. There's like the bell curve, it exists for a reason.
Right. Yeah,
And
exactly.
to me, sort of realizing like the things that you can learn from travel and putting yourself in different communities where people think very differently from you. Right. It's like the whetstone as you speak. But I think it's also like, this is again to me, I'm sort of appreciating the kind of like biological aspect of like human culture is like, oh, right. Like there's that notion that like uh strong times create weak men create bad
Sure.
times and that whole like historical arc, right? And you sort of
Yeah.
see you can notice the generational pendulum swinging back and forth. And so surely this is like emergent human behavior, and the thing that actually corrects for that is a certain optimum level of diversity and the opportunity to see that like, oh, like my ideas can't just be held. Like my ideas and my
Yeah.
strong values can't just be held in and of itself because like reasoning from first principles is actually like a very imperfect process,
Right.
right? I
Yes.
need to have contrast with which to strengthen my ideals.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Yeah,
want a
I guess what
dynamism.
definitely. I'm certainly like in our family, we think about that a lot in terms of like what values are we raising our children with? Because and this is to something that you spoke of earlier. It's like Thailand is where my mother is from. My dad's American, but like I have tons of family in the US who would probably be in a better position to like help us out like family
Right.
wise. Like my dad's here right now, which is really great. And you just realize, oh, right, the presence of just like one extra adult in the
Right.
nuclear home actually like
Yes.
it's a
The
better
nuclear
dynamic.
home, by the way, is fucked up. But
Yeah.
I mean, not
Yeah.
not in the not like the classical talking point. Like, obviously, there's like some American talking point that's like, oh, the nuclear family, like abolish it. No, it's like to be clear, the nuclear family's pretty fucking good. So like,
Yeah.
before you abolish it, maybe go have a family of your own, listener or whatever.
Yeah.
But also, uh,
It's
yeah,
meant to
it
exist within a system.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is insane how isolated
Hmm.
experience being a parent is, and how it's like as far as I can tell, there is just like no particularly good way to get to the next level
Hmm.
either. Like we've started hosting. I mean, there's so many things we tried. We tried baby co-working. That was helpful. Everything I mentioned helpful, but like none of them
Yeah.
solved the problem. Co-working. We tried Sunday brunches. We tried babysitting on certain evenings. And like, thank God we have enough friends and community that all these things happen and we get to run all these
Hmm.
experiments. Now we're hosting like cozier dinners and brunches. Best ish patterns have emerged are something like if we can have almost like a tribe dinner every night,
Yeah.
I think we could like get
Mm.
there, but it's so expensive to host in a place like New York City a tribe dinner every night. Not in financial, I just mean it's like there's a lot of coordination costs because people in
Hmm.
tribes.
Yeah. So
And
much to do.
yeah, everyone's like doing stuff all the time and they all have things scheduled and so and then like the worst thing, yeah, I mean not the worst thing, but one outcome which is very negative is that even a single person comes who you like to host, and then all of a sudden now you're like hosting and you're also taking care of your child, and you're like, wait, this is the opposite of
Mm.
what I wanted, you know, like what I wanted for my
Yeah.
family to come over and take care of me, but actually now I'm like managing people's expectations and I'm taking care of my child,
Yeah.
whatever. So anyway, I mean, kind of tangent, but like, I really, really would like to at some point solve the problem what comes after the nuclear family for networks, and
Hmm.
I feel no closer. Probably am in fact closer than when I started, but I feel no closer than when I started. And I do
Mm.
not have the answers. I
No,
wish I did.
so the conversation I had with Cynthia, excuse me, recently is, even before becoming a parent, she's like still like, a hopeful prospective parent. But as she moved herself into an intentional community, because she kids. Like that was on her sort of shopping list
Yeah.
because she wanted to be around kids and like to have that practice. And so now when she does become a mother, she has like built-in babysitters in place, you know? And she, unlike so many people, I think of like the millennial generation and I think beyond, rather than like living in a world completely separated from children for a decade, like she's been around. And I think that's kind of like, that's something that was kind of invisible to me until I became a parent.
Yeah.
But I think I'll share from my own experiences being like a community builder. I was like, okay, I'm lonely, I'm isolated, I need other moms. Like, what are my professional skills that will come to this? So my first group, I hosted like a mother sharing circle. I'd hosted like women sharing circles before. So I thought like women, we like to come together to like share our problems and feel held and
Yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
we're not
Yeah.
alone in this. So like I bet I can find some other moms. And that worked really well. That was like my
Nice.
first group. But then it was kind of a cohort because we met for a few months, but I didn't go back to work. And like I noticed some mothers who did go back to work or kids who started going
Right.
to daycare and started getting more sick. It was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, it becomes really hard to sustain this.
Right.
So my next thing was try to organize play dates, and I did for a while. And because Chiang Mai is a fairly transit community, there's like the digital nomads who definitely come and go. There's like the full-on like visitors, like tourists, but even the expats who were here for a couple of years, people are always going in and out.
Yeah.
So it was always easy to get the first one going, hard to get people to keep coming.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of lesson learned too, because like little kids get sick a lot. So even the
Little
kinds
kids
of
get sick
people who are
so
like,
often.
I know you, and
Yeah.
that's the thing is like you have to be. That was something I had to like remember to like not take
Yeah.
personally because I was like,
Right.
oh, but I made the effort to go to your thing. Why aren't
Yeah.
you making
Yeah.
the effort to go to my thing? And it's like, no, sometimes parents just need to bail last minute, and like
Yeah.
that's the call that they need to make. So how do you keep things going like despite this backdrop?
Yeah.
It's
I've
hard.
always dreamed. I first was a community. And I'm like, it'll be great. It'll be like there's like a fire and everyone comes every evening.
Yeah.
And then we started this like space, and I was like, yeah, like bring my dog to the third space in the evenings, and we're gonna like play guitar. We have like three guitars and two pianos and instruments, and friends play and we sing. I'm like, yeah, like we'll be doing that all the time, and it's gonna be great. And then I'm like, my dog needs to go to bed. Like, she's oh no,
Yeah.
like she needs to eat. She's grumpy. Like
Yeah.
she's she's through a period, a sensitive period. There's just like so much that spins as a parent,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, I'm sorry, guys, like I can't coordinate with you right now. And then
Yeah.
and then this makes you feel even more isolated because you're like, is it my
Yeah.
fault that I don't have a community right now? Is it like my fault that I feel like I don't have the support I need because I'm the
Mm-hmm.
one bailing my friends all and yeah, it's really tricky. And
Yeah.
there's a sense in which like we're able to smile about it because we're in a very position like we still have a big
Mm-hmm.
community and we still do hang out all the time and people do like my daughter has 10 uncles and aunts at least who feel comfortable just like
Yeah.
throwing her at them for a day and bailing, who all live in the city. So and maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a big group chat of 40 people who like love our daughter and would take care of and like even despite all that, it is like definitely not enough. Having a kid is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think I think it is to some extent just a skill issue because you just have to
Yeah.
like build up to there, but it's also
Yeah.
like babe like it's also a developmental phase. Like I think you're on the cusp, I think like very small children, highly portable, they just fall
Yeah.
asleep given
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
enough
that part was easy. I
imperfect
remember. I
conditions.
remember when I had the like smallest child, I was like, "Oh, having being a parent's so easy. Like, what are people complaining about?"
Yeah. Yeah. No, but I think going into like 3 years old comes with its own like set
Yeah,
of like interesting new developments, but suddenly you start being able to, I think, push at the margins a little better. Like we started being able to like push bedtime a little later, I
yeah,
think like once we got to three. So it was like, okay, it's not completely unreasonable to try to do like an early-ish dinner party, something. And sometimes when they're having fun too, especially once they actually like figure out how to play with other kids, because
yeah.
that's the other thing is like, oh, they don't know
They
how to
like don't
play
know.
together until they're three. So they're kind of just around, each demanding the parents' attention.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
It's
you're on the
wonderful.
cusp. It's
It's like
gonna, it's gonna, yeah.
yeah. that's another thing about parenting in especially in community, but just in general that's like a funky is that you, despite how ridiculously hard it all is, and therefore like, complaints I guess you hear from parents, it's like you can't help. I can't help but smile because
Mm,
this is just like the most fun I've ever had and the greatest. I'm
yeah.
exhausted all the time and like nothing feels like it's enough. So stressed, and yet God gifts me with like ultimate bliss every day. It's like a weird.
Yeah.
It's like a weird blissful pain, blissful stress.
Yeah.
Very strange.
I think it is a fairly like natural orientation or biology lends itself to it, but I think no, going back to what you said, well, these were my words, not yours so much, but like just having the right attitude to
Totally.
receive abundance and goodness of the world, like it
Yeah.
seems like you're well primed in that way. Like you want to be happy about this whole
Right.
situation and be able to
Yeah.
find the humor and not just like sink into the like the morass and challenge of it, right?
I think we are gonna. And part of the good humor is I think we are figuring. We're figuring, and then we'll publish.
Hmm. Yeah,
Mark
yeah.
my words. Hopefully, a year from now, I'll have like how to
Hmm.
raise kids with your friends essay that comes out.
Yeah.
Realistically, Priya will, and that'll go viral. So
Yeah.
hopefully in the
So,
next year,
yeah. Have we had any other fractal babies,
a
or is
bunch
this now an
actually. Not
area of
like
exploration?
not like
Yeah.
so many, like 50% plus. It's not even close,
Mm-hmm.
but it's be an additional 5 families, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
or 6 families. And I think God willing, so to speak, more people will. People have definitely
Mm-hmm.
expressed since we had a kid a desire to have kids and a desire to get married. This gets into one of my favorite sociological, uh, like armchair sociology parts of fractal
Okay.
to talk.
Let's
I've
have it.
been talking about how talked about fractal as developmental, and I agreed. It's
Mm-hmm.
obviously developmental. So naturally, you can compare it to other developmental institutions, especially popular American developmental institutions, because
Mm-hmm.
most people are American or Western of some kind, and so
Yeah.
therefore and honestly, even in the East, like education system's the same. I I have this concept called turbo high school, and I also have a concept called turbo college, and turbo high school is my favorite because turbo high school is like, why do you come to Fractal? Like, what is it that you need from Fractal in particular? If you're in Turbo High
Mm-hmm.
School, it's like you need to kiss a girl or a boy. You need to like
Mm.
go to a bunch of parties. You need to get drunk. Like, you need to like find your people. You need to come out of your shell. You need to connect with people. Uh, you need to heal in like a lot of these social ways. Like you feel like you never found yourself socially
Yeah.
or whatever. Um, and what's funny is like Priya and I never wanted Turbo High School or never we never needed it when we started
Mm-hmm.
Fractal, but we found that like so many people would just kind of like naturally create this thing for themselves,
Mm.
uh, and it was like one of the more popular things that happened at Fractal. It was like you'd kind of have the I don't know. It sounds so demeaning. I hope nobody's if anybody's listening to Fractal, I very much love you, and you're not in high school. You're all adults. However, I feel like there's some Turbo High School is some of my like a thing that needs to happen more in a lot of different containers when people miss these core developmental windows. So
Yeah.
like maybe they never, found these things. I bring this up because you're talking about marriage and kids. I feel like one, and why is it called Turbo High School? Like this is actually a term of endearment because people are speed running, right? It's like they're
Yeah.
not actually trying to like be adolescent. It's just they're like speed running a kind of adult
Ticking off the
adolescence.
boxes. Yeah.
Right. Because actually these are real phases of development. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
never reach that phase, you actually need to get through it. And you need to continue to adolesce until you reach the next stage. And then there's kind of a turbo college, which we find people in. Turbo high school is almost like a phase where people are coming to find themselves, but they don't know what that means. And then turbo college is like people are like, "Oh, I think I know what I want to do." It's like I think I finally know what I'm
Mm.
about. Like I'm going to go pursue that thing. And they're like their job, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, and they're speed running it, but also it's definitely like somebody's first steps into their work, into their life's work, or into their purpose, or into their meaning, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find these people who graduate and they like figure it out, and you're like, yes,
Yeah.
like that's so beautiful. Like I'm so happy for you, you did it. But I think that a lot of people are still in those developmental stages, so
Mm-hmm.
to speak, in a good way. Finding themselves, finding their work, rather than just doing stuff that they think is meaningless and purposelessness, like really, truly devoting themselves to their own lives. So, like that's good.
Yeah.
I think that can kind of hold you back from being married, having kids, if you're still in a
Yeah.
developmental stage, because a kind of natural prerequisite to marriage is stability and the ability to put down roots. And roots often
Yeah.
come, after somebody graduates from college, so to speak.
Yeah. I definitely, as someone who's still like on the margins of the digital nomad community, that's often been my like observation slash like beef is I see some of these same phases. And to me, there's a very interesting pipeline from like digital nomads into intentional communities, which for some
Right.
folks on the outside would seem like what do those have to do with one another? Like one's freedom, the other's rudeness, but it's actually like what people who have had that freedom to explore, develop, be ambitious, try something new, all of a sudden they're like, oh, actually, what I really want is like, I have an idealized version of it and I want to go find it or create it, right? Which they, yeah, wouldn't have if they hadn't had to, like, had the chance to go through those experiences. So to me, it's like, yeah, you're graduating.
Yeah. And I think Fractal, in some sense, was always for stuff that comes after, for like people to
Mm-hmm.
pursue their life's work. But naturally, if you want people
Yeah.
to pursue their life's work, you're going to need to support them in their developmental stages. Also, my laptop is dying, so but I'm still on.
Yeah. I think something I don't know, you haven't said this explicitly, but I'm kind of picking up on notes of it is I think sort of rituals and like life stages. I think it's I find it very interesting when people sort of make this like anthropological observation that we used to have like coming of age rituals
Yeah, totally.
that like gave our lives more distinction, and now we have like high school, college, getting your driver's license, like the gap year. These are kind of the closer approximations that we have now. But what was your, sorry, there was this particular term that you've been using, like social form
Yeah,
or something like that. It's like, right, like it's a social form that we kind of need to like rediscover. We need to create these like new scripts and invite people to use them, put them into practice, try them out to see. And it does feel like maybe part of this like fractal thing, like the seniors and like the digital nomad seniors, whatever that is sort of figuring out, yeah, kind of the next phase, like the maturation phase. Because like podcasters, right? There's so many like wonderful podcasters who I feel like that's a Venn diagram with like the digital nomad scene is like the personal development, but like it can also become like a form of Peter Panism and just like it can become like a very ego driven thing and like a very
yeah,
selfish thing, even with the like, even though it seems like it should be good. No, at some point you should, that this is me inserting a strong opinion. At some point, you need to be turning that energy around and putting it into something. A family is the
totally.
most natural thing, but maybe other people find something else that they need to like nurture and support and like protect, right? And
Yeah, I find this question of, like morality and development fascinating because they go hand in hand. Like to your qualification you had to make, it's like, well, who are you to say this is right or wrong? It's like, well, obviously you are. Like we all have to say what's right or wrong. Like judge or be
yeah,
judged. You have to decide what is good, and in fact, deciding what is good and finding a value system, settling into a value system, and changing over time. But like this is one of
mm-hmm.
the things that you have to do as you develop into an adult, and you're not like you can try to get away from it, but like really, you're running from yourself. There's nobody to fool here. You have to
Yeah,
decide like, oh, it is actually a bad thing, so to speak. Like, and people can have different perspectives. There's something that it and to the pluralism, like I'm sure you like me have a kind of natural pluralism that's like there's something that's like to be true to yourself. So it's like
mm-hmm.
there are podcasters qua podcasters. Like there are people where it's just right. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing else they should be doing. It is in some sense the calling. It is their calling. It is their
Their
soul.
essence, yeah.
And like what they have to give up to do that, even if they have to give up family,
Mm.
even if they have to give up career, even if they have to give up all rootedness, like they just have to do. It. And so, and in a sense, when you see that, you're like, wow, how beautiful that I get to share a world with this like strange creature that has a completely foreign value system to me. Um, and yet you're also right that there are people who kind of know that they're Peter Panning, so to speak. There are people who
Hmm.
know that they're delaying their like in a kind of inevitable stage that they want to
Yeah.
develop into.
Yeah. It's sort of, I feel like I'm watching Tim Ferriss sort of come around to this when I like see
Yeah,
what he's tweeting, the conversations
yeah.
he's having. I'm like, oh my God, you are so influential. If and when you decide to do marriage and family, you're gonna like
Oh, it's
shake the
crazy,
ground.
right?
You're gonna publish
Yeah,
another
yeah,
book
yeah.
about it.
The 4 Hour Family.
Whoa. I think he might need to like break the paradigm a little bit to go with that one. But it would be I would be fascinated to observe that. That's a story I'm like, like sign me up. I'm pre-prescribed for yeah, sign me up for that pre-sale.
Yeah,
But yeah, I guess this comes back to the idea of just like I feel like yeah, you're sort of like Fractal feels like it's something that's like rediscovering the software, like the in practice and cultural and community like bases that we need to like I think be happy in this like yeah, a
it's
post-scarcity
yeah.
society. Because when I think of New York, honestly, like I lived there for 9 months. I like tried to do the startup thing. I worked a lot. I sort of realized like, oh, people in New York like work a lot and they party a
People like
lot.
to
And
work.
I
Yeah,
can't keep up.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so, I'm not trying to be sour grapes about it, but like New York to me is like the epicenter of
I get
just
it.
like overwork, burnout,
It's
like
crazy.
people who are
Yeah,
so identified with their careers. But like, if you can make an impact there, if you can like sort of like insert, like be there with a narrative ready to catch these people when they fall, if a lot of folks are losing jobs to
totally.
AI and automation,
Yeah,
and we have this, I think, emerging crisis of meaning. I really love the idea that like you're sort of like getting ready with like little trampoline to help them bounce
yeah.
out.
It's tricky, right? Because like the thing that we love about New York, the thing that so many people love about New York is that people are here to work. They're like here to pursue their dreams and to make it happen, no matter how hard it is. It's a very gritty city in that regard. And then, and yet, like, nobody has lost their humanity here. Like, New York is a
Hmm.
society, it is not merely a city. This is a place where people will look you in the eyes. It is a place where people will talk to you on the street. It is a place where people will, like, notice what you are wearing and comment about it or notice your child and say hello. So there's like something just deeply fascinating to me about how the city, to your point, manages to be like amongst the most work obsessed places and yet still be a place where
Yeah.
people want relationships and they want to know each other. Um,
Hmm.
I do also think that, to your point, there will be and are already crises of meaning occur because of all this work and because of burnout. And yet, the tricky part is that people want their life to mean something. And that's
Yeah.
what, and New York is very much about this as well. There's a concept of work life balance, obviously,
Mm.
popular in the culture. And it's a concept I don't believe in, actually. I mean, unsurprisingly, I guess, because
Yeah.
I live in New York. But one of the reasons that I don't believe in it, though, is not because I think that you should work all the time or that you should make work into your life. Uh, it's because, to me, life is the whole thing. Like, I am alive.
Hmm.
That's what my experience is. This is who I am. And inside of my life are a lot of things, like my family, my love, my romantic nature, poetry, art, um, relationships with the divine. Like my life has so much in it,
Hmm.
and it can just get bigger. Like you can just fill this thing up, There's
Yeah.
it's not a balancing act. I think you can kind of just keep you can't just add more time to your life. And I know that work-life balance is like about time, so to speak, but there's a sense in which life is about a lot more than time. It is about
Hmm.
something deeper than that. And you can keep getting more of this, like this quality, whatever it is,
Hmm.
for you, the quality without a name. I can't tell you what it is. And I think for a lot of people, their work is the means by which they cultivate this quality
Yeah.
and garden it in their lives. And for other people, it's not. Their work is just a way for them to make money so that they can sustain themselves. If that's you, I understand why you would want work to be something like again, I still just would encourage you not to think in terms of balance. Like it's not like
Yeah.
actually you should be doing work-life minimization. You should be minimizing work so that you can maximize life. It's not about to balance the two at all at
Hmm.
that point. Or alternatively, you're like gardening your life, and in gardening your life, you decide that work is going to be one of the means by which you cultivate that which you love and that which you value. Anyway, to your point about Fractal and what Fractal can be, I hope that we succeed in helping people see this, that like this is an option to them always, that you
Hmm.
can always cultivate your life. You can always surround yourself with people who are cultivating their life, and you don't need to feel alone in that or like that's shameful or weird.
Yeah.
And you certainly don't need to like do work that you hate. There is some amount of like the world is just too short and life is too short for bullshit like that. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes you have to, but even then, you can surround yourself with people who understand what it means to have to and live for more than that. And hopefully, Fractal can be a place where those people find each other. At least that's Priya and I's ambition.
Yeah. And so maybe to take your daughter as like the lens to this, if you're looking at the family project at Fractal, at what you hope to emerge out of this Scenius from New York's infrastructure, I don't know, like what's your, I imagine this might be part wish list, part to-do list. Like, what do
Yeah.
you hope your daughter's like future in this scene, in this city, like will be?
Oh man, I mean, she is gonna surprise me. Like she's gonna do things that
Yeah.
I could not possibly expect or anticipate, and I think that like, I struggle to answer the question because of how amazed I am by her already and how amazed I expect to
Hmm.
be. I hesitate. I'll answer your question, but first let me just say that I hesitate to even predict. Uh, I also think that there's I'll add a couple qualifications. There's another qualification which is like I also think that there's sense in which her life will be hers to shape and it isn't mine to shape. And even though
Hmm.
I'm her guide through this journey, um, at least for now, I really would not want her to think that my values are the ones which she needs to that she needs to adopt for herself. And I definitely don't think like my scene is a scene that she needs to respect or take
Mm.
care of or participate in if she doesn't want to. There's like a couple qualifications. Um, and hopefully that's true for everyone in the scene. Like ideally it's easy to exit.
Hmm.
You don't want you
Yeah.
don't want a scene where people it's a scene, not a community. Like I don't
Not a
want
cult.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and also like it's literally not even a community. It's like I don't want a single person who's here against their will because the point is that we're like-minded people who happen to be in the same place, not like-minded people who have a commitment to one another. Now, the commitments might
Mm.
form like I have many commitments to my friends here in the city. The scene should be composed of people who are here because they found themselves here, not
It's
because
a very
they,
interesting
they
distinction.
made these
Yeah.
commitments. And I certainly wouldn't want to pre-commit my daughter to anything for similar reasons why I wouldn't want to pre-commit anyone to
Yeah.
obligations. But um, to answer the question more directly, I hope for her that well, I study education and I build schools. And I could say that one of the reasons that I study education and build schools is because I'm fascinated in developmental science. I'm fascinated in how people become and in how people find themselves. I think that my daughter has, there's a couple things. Like, there's a lot of potential that she has that she isn't able to see because she, like all of us, is blind to her own abilities. Like there's
Mm.
something that it will be like for her to sharpen herself against reality, to sharpen herself against culture, and to uncover herself through a process of breaking and getting stronger, just like
Mm.
with muscle. And so there's some like first let me say like I'm not just like oh my daughter can like be whoever she wants to be or whatever. Like no, I mean there's training. Like she needs to train,
Hmm.
and that training is going to be in language and liberal arts, in the sciences and technology, in economics, in politics. I expect her to train herself and to cultivate herself. And I do expect that, like, I mean, again, if you don't have kids, and you're listening to this or whatever, like, or you've never taught kids before and you're listening, just know that like I I am a I've read Free to Learn, like I have read John Holt. I'm a believer in, I think that the coercing children is evil and wrong.
Mm.
And yet, children do not come into this world knowing what it is that they need or want in order to
Mm-hmm.
cultivate themselves. And I think a lot of people don't appreciate that until they teach kids. And once you're teaching
Yeah.
them, you're like, oh yeah, obviously these people want me to tell them what to do. Like they want it so bad, need it.
Yeah.
It's like it's the fundamental psychological nutrient that they
Mm-hmm.
need to feel included in their society, is for
Yeah.
people to tell them how they can improve and how they can
Yeah.
get better.
These are
And
the
so,
boundaries. These are expectations.
right. Yeah, and
Yeah.
they want challenge. Like they want to
Mm.
know what to do. They want to know what's interesting and fun and cool, but also they want to know what's hard. They want to know what would be impressive. And like different people are going to have different kind of ways in which they express this, and the goal is never to you never push. It should feel like growing muscle, not breaking bone. Like you can never push the kid to do something they can't or don't want to do. Like you're going to break them. But kids really do want to be pushed. So it's complicated. But anyway, so there's that. There's training, and then there's some amount of like what I expect to happen on the other side of this training is that I expect, which is just education. You like maybe we'll send her to private school, or maybe we'll do some kind of mix of homeschooling and private schooling, or maybe we'll send her to public
Mm-hmm.
school and do a mix. I was a public school kid. So this is really not about the particulars of the education so much as the purpose. And then
Yeah.
I think what I want her to understand from this are the core liberal arts. To me, the liberal arts are three things. Those arts that, one, set you free, so literally that liberate you. Liberate
Mm.
you to do what? In order to achieve your values. So the second thing is to achieve your values. The third thing is in the context of your society. So the liberal arts are these three things. You're
Mm.
teaching people liberating arts that help them to achieve their values. So you're teaching them moral philosophy. You're teaching them how to uncover their own values for themselves. And then the third thing you're teaching them is about their society, their history, their context, where they are, why, what what things they have to work with that they are inheriting, what their inheritance is, these kinds of things. The liberating arts, I think, are the most obvious to people. That's like you literally just teach people a bunch of skills like engineering and English and mathematics and all this stuff. People are aware of this. But I think the second and third thing are less well understood. Like, yeah, some people like history, but they're kind of just history nerds. And I think that like to the third point of the liberal arts, your societal context, the reason that you want to teach people history, political philosophy, um, sociology, etc., is that you want them to understand that they have inherited something. They like live in a world
Mm.
that has culture, and the culture has gotten to a place, and it has all these traditions, and you can tap into
Yeah.
them. And if you do tap into them, like there's power that's available to you to liberate yourself and to liberate your fellow man. And then for the second thing, also for moral philosophy, I think people have shied away from this. They like want like a kind of values free education.
Mm.
It's like, oh, what if I could teach somebody math, but I didn't teach them what was right or wrong? And it's like, no, I'm sorry. Like, you can't, you can try your absolute best, but
Yeah.
like, good luck. Education is fundamentally a communication of values through culture. And what does your culture say to a child if the culture tries to have no values? I don't
Mm.
think that that's a good thing personally, and I actually
Yeah.
think that it creates a crisis of meaning in your culture, and I think that maybe we're living through that crisis of meaning literally right now because we've had an education system for over 20 years that pretends like there are no values at all that it has, and that even though obviously it does have secret subconscious values that it won't admit. And then a bunch of people graduate and they're like, wait, what is the purpose of my life again? um, and then they're like, oh yeah, like we never told you about that, right? And yet they feel like some guilt of like, oh, but I'm not doing what's correct. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's gross. I don't want to do that. And then hopefully after she learns these liberal arts, she will feel free. If she's free,
Yeah.
then I will be surprised at that point, and hopefully the role that she finds herself in is a role where she can truly shape, what it is that she wants, the institutions that she wants, the destiny that she wants, and she doesn't feel like beholden to or shackled by any particular set of incentives or systems or values, including my own, including, not like hopefully she loves the ones that she inherited, but if she doesn't, then hopefully she's free to change them.
Yeah. Something I'm definitely going to carry forward from this conversation is, what you sort of, how you spoke about writing and cyborgs and just, the very of sort of discovery, reflection, using this tool, using this medium is something that reflects back to you. And it's certainly something I'm feeling in this conversation for myself. I can see it in you through this whole process of like creating and being created by Fractal. This has been really fun.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's been really
so
great to talk.
much.
Thanks for hosting.
Yeah, it's a kind of a wonder of the time that you can just sort of make internet friends and have all these like parasocial relationships and sort of just like glimpse around. But it's really been a gift to be able to have a conversation with you because you're really fun. You're like a good
Thank
thinker,
you.
and I'm like, wow, I'm gonna sit with like a lot of things that you've shared. So I just really appreciate appreciate your time.
Well, it was wonderful to be on the podcast. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a delight to talk to you. Look forward to seeing you at Tribe Camp, I think. Are you going to be?
No, I won't make
No,
it
okay.
because I know I would love to go, but I am about 4 months pregnant, so timing is just not
Makes
really good this
sense.
time
Makes
around.
sense.
But
Yeah.
yeah, major FOMO because
Well, at least there
that's
will be
definitely
a goal in the making. It's
there's a
really seems
collision
obvious.
of worlds and I am very excited to like circle all my Venn diagrams of interests and communities. So,
There
yeah.
will be many more. We're hoping and I to also get into. I mean, not to like add more camps. There's like so many camps, but also yeah, like we're probably gonna add a camp of some kind. And the idea is like we think that there's something about Fractal and it's like particular intellectual interest where we want to host a camp that's a little bit more like a lot of the camp friends, and I think
Mm,
we want to host a camp that like it like verges on conference, but everyone is just so awesome, so you're like,
yeah.
this is the best. It's the best conference I've ever been to because yes, everyone knows their shit and can talk about it and is a practitioner themselves, but also
Yeah.
uh, people do come in order to connect with one another in order to make friendships and in order to discuss specifically this thing that you and I both mentioned is like emerging, which is like, oh, there's network technology that needs to be invented. It's like, okay, well, maybe we should have a conference where all the network technologists can talk to each other and share the stuff they're making. And then it can be like, I don't know, whatever game conferences or technology conferences that have changed industries. Maybe there's a whole thing here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if there's any interest in coming to this part of the world, Southeast Asia to Thailand,
Priya used to go to
definitely
Thailand
would
all the
be.
time because her
Yeah,
brother was a digital nomad, like a proper Tim Ferriss 4 hour
nice.
work week digital nomad, and so she would go pretty frequently.
Yeah, well, for sure, there's a lot of us who go to the Network State Conference every year. That's in September. And so in Chiang Mai, on Kaoh Phangan, definitely in the area, there's many pending events in August, September, October of this year that folks are still trying to define. And so if there's an opportunity to sort of link up, like, yeah, I feel like Fractal would be a wonderful, not just like culture fit, but just like catalyst.
Yeah, well, that would be really fun. I hope so. Maybe when my daughter's, yeah, if she's getting 2 or 3, maybe she'll want to travel more. That would be fun. We used to travel a lot before we had her,
Yeah.
so I could imagine her. Priya always had this dream of like taking her to the Amazon and traveling the world with her. And I guess she's old enough. We could get around to it. That's a good idea.
It
Maybe this
is.
will be the year.
I think once they drop their naps, all the logistics become easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you guys are on the cusp of I think having a lot more flexibility with the kid, and I can definitely imagine that the kinds of people that you and Priya are, you're gonna like figure that out in a really fun way.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, thank you so much for the words of encouragement and for the conversation.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, Andrew.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Lily Zabo, and this has been the Amagi Village podcast. Amagi is an ancient Sumerian word for return to mother. It's also the earliest denotation of emancipation and freedom. Not freedom through escape, but through return, through restoration, integration, through rebirth. The world is quickly changing, and the myth of modernity is coming undone. Progress is not linear, and to thrive in the coming age, we can't keep living in the matrix and just hoping for the best. It's time to embark on bold experiments. We don't claim to know what the answer is, but we know it won't come from ideology. This isn't a cult, it's not a brand. Amagi is an invitation for those who don't just play with new ideas, but are ready to live them, to walk the talk, to build the future. The Amagi Village podcast documents our journey of discovery. We're learning in public from technologists and tribal elders, from philosophers and farmers. Let's reimagine the future together. Please visit amagi.life to learn more. That's amagi.life.